let's switch to just the plain old grey colour palette, I think. Kashi has chosen to add a Kirby. We will add a Kirby. God. This one doesn't want to stay on here. Oh no! It's already a disaster. Alright, we have an additional Kirby. Oh, of course you wait till I sat down to add another one. More Kirby. I mean, yeah. I was telling Kashi this beforehand that I have obviously a limited number of Kirbys, but people can keep adding them, and once I run out, if you redeem it again, that's on you. Which is making scrolling the redeems a bit hard. Oh, that's annoying. Another Kirby. Let's add this one. This one doesn't stand up. It's meant to hang off stuff. I will just have to buy more Kirbys, that's true. People demand Kirby. It's true. I've also got, found this while I was looking for all my Kirby stuff. Which I forgot I had. Let's see if I can put it in front of the camera. I bought this Kirby card game a while ago. It's entirely in Japanese and I can't read. So I've not played it. Found a PDF of the rules and I meant to just like Google translate them and try to figure it out. But I've not done that yet. And I kind of forgot it existed. But it's very cute. It's kind of a nice wee thing to own. Yeah, it looks nice. I would like to be able to play it. I think it's just a very simple, like, kind of wave-based, kind of deck building thing. Anyway, we're going to play Kirby. This is Kirby's Dream Land, the very first Kirby game. It was for the Game Boy. It's very different from what you might expect from a Kirby game. In all ways, it's the same as what you'd expect from a Kirby game, but in some ways it's very different. For example, we don't have the copy ability in this game. That didn't get introduced until the second game. The music's there though. You can still suck. You just can't get anything from it. Yeah, no copy. Goods. I don't know if I've ever actually finished this game before, but from what I understand it's relatively short, so we'll probably finish it in this stream. If we have time, we'll spin the wheel and play. At this time, it's probably going to be Dream Course. If you would like to add something to the Wii, not the Wii, sorry, I'm too used to saying the Wii wheel. If you want to add something to the Kirby wheel, there's a redeem for it. Exclamation mark Kirby will show you the thing. So far, Jonathan has added Dream Course to it like 3 times because they hate me and want me to be in pain. I don't hate Dream Course though. Yeah, we'll get. So the only thing I'm only doing the wheel for the spin-off games. We're going to play through the like mainline games in order, but we will get to Robobot. The only ones I've excluded are the Dream Course. The only ones I've excluded are the stylus-based ones. Yeah, if you want to pick something else, I'll do it. If you do exclamation mark Kirby, there's a list. Also, this game's fun. Like, it's weird not having the copy abilities, but like, it still looks nice. It still plays nice. Why is this here? Why is this here? If you pick one of those, I'll add it for you anyway. Okay, Jonathan, I don't know if you were here when I explained it, but there's also 2 other new redeems if you want. And look, this tree boss has been here since the first game. We're going to be seeing a lot of this guy. Add a Kirby. Right, I'll fight the boss and I'll add a Kirby. I'm gonna run out of Kirbys. Air Ride is cool. I've never played Air Ride. Like, I set it up, people on like aren't tempted. Yeah, look, I knew they would use it. Add a Kirby. This little Kirby here. In fact, you know what? Let's give him a wee start to stand on. I think all the remaining Kirbys are going to be little Kirbys. I have a lot of these little Kirbys kicking about. Kirby is the best part. So we don't have copy abilities, but some of the abilities like that microphone are just in the world in this game. I don't want to... Oh, I think it does it anyway. This game... No. We can't do anything underwater in this game. This game holds up, honestly. It's still just a, like, tight little platformer. But from what I understand, like, again, I don't think I've ever finished this game. This game's like 5 levels long, if I remember right. Oh, let's get the star. It's kind of impressive for a, like, OG Game Boy game as well. Avalanche is Puyo Puyo, right? Yeah. Avalanche is, if I remember right, it's like just a reskin of Puyo Puyo 2. Like, I think they're the exact same game. I was mentioning before, I don't think we'll finish all of the spin-offs, but we'll play them for a decent amount of time. We're going to try to finish all of the... Oh my god, give me the curry. We're going to try to finish all of the actual, like, mainline games, though. I say mainline games, I included Kirby's Epic Yarn in there, which is not technically a mainline game, but I like that game, so we're gonna play it. Because Kirby's Epic Yarn is adorable, if nothing else. And it's very different, again, it doesn't have the copy abilities, but it's such a cool wee game. Yeah, technically it's a spin-off. Right, let's go to the top door here. Canonically, it's a spin-off. It's a good game. I get why people don't count it, because it's kind of not a Kirby game in a lot of ways. Like, it doesn't really play like a Kirby game. But you know what? Oh, I died. I wasn't expecting that. Thought I had more health than that. You know what? This doesn't technically play like a Kirby game either, and it's canon. Oh, I ate the box. I need to not get hit every time I do that. One more hit. There we go. Can we get a dance? really, you know, they got the gist of what Kirby was going to be from the first game, you know? A lot of the essentials of what would become known as Kirby were there from the start. He dances, he eats things, he floats. He murders countless amounts of wildlife. Oh god. He falls and dies. Couldn't float because it had an enemy underneath. Which, you know, we've all been there. Yeah, Epic Yarn it still looks fantastic, honestly. Well, I think it does. It's been a while since I played it. Another one that I don't think I ever finished. So I'm looking forward to getting to that. I was mentioning this before. Oh god. My plan is to play through all the Kirby games. But the length of time it's going to take us to get through them all, there will almost definitely be a new Kirby game by the time we finish, which I will just add to the end. As nice as it would be to end on Forgotten Land, because honestly it might be my favourite Kirby. By the time we get to it, there's a good chance there'll be another Kirby game, because they do release Kirby games like at a relatively frequent pace. And for spin-offs, I'm kind of limiting it to the older ones, because at a certain point they just started releasing every mini-game from the series as a spin-off. And we don't have time for that. I don't know if I put Dream Buffet on there, actually. Because actually that one should probably be on there, because it is like a unique thing. I'll add that to the list later. People haven't seen Dream Buffet, it's like a... I don't know how to describe it. Right, this is where I went before. Like a weird party game where you're a big Kirby rolling around. Yeah, it's a big fat cake Kirby. Yeah, it looks interesting. I've still not played it either. I didn't pick it up, but I will pick it up if it gets picked on the wheel, which is currently not on the wheel, but I'll add it. Shit. This game looks nice. I'm always surprised by... I don't know how late in the Game Boy this was. I feel like I'm always surprised by how good some Game Boy games look. Because like, some of the early Game Boy games kinda just look terrible. Let's be honest here. They've not aged super well. Or not necessarily terrible, but they look basic, you know? Very simple, whereas there's like a lot going on in the backgrounds and stuff in this game. And all of this, like, animation of, like, blasting through levels and stuff like that seems kind of crazy for a Game Boy game. Oh god, we got stuck in the whale. Oh. There's a flying section. This is just like Bubsy 2. The best of the 2D platformers. Yeah. Yeah, it's in the box art thing. I don't know if it's on the... I don't think I put it on the wheel. I'll need to update it. Stage 4, bubbly clouds. I mainly just made the thing that scrolls through all the box arts because I was looking for the box arts for make like the little end screen that I've got, and I realized that the Kirby wiki, or Wikirby as it's called, has like insanely high resolution versions of like all of the Kirby box arts. Like it's kind of just nuts. Oh, that's a hole. Oops. Sometimes I find it hard to tell if it's a bottomless pit or if it's really low down ground. and that's on me, I think. Yeah, like the Wick Kirby has incredibly high resolution versions of all of the box art. So I was like, I should just stick them on there. Yeah, like he looks angry in the American ones. Which is pretty fun. Yeah, I can definitely get it. Oh my god, I'm gonna die. Sword power would be pretty useful right now. Shame that that's not a thing in this game. I do need health. Oh god, oh god, oh god. Right, we'll just skip this guy. I'm trying to be very careful now because I don't want to... Big Kirby for a bit. Oh, oh, oh. No! I pressed up and I pressed it too late. Alright. At least the checkpoints are pretty good. Doesn't send you... It's actually surprisingly forgiving for like this era of game. I guess that was kind of the thing with Kirby, it was always meant to be like an easier platforming series. Like a more accessible kind of... Like that's why Kirby can fly, right? Is you don't really need to worry about being really good at platforming because, you know, you just fly about. Although this game does have a hard mode that unlocks after you finish it. We probably won't play that on stream, but I'll probably play it off stream, honestly. Yeah. People haven't watched them. Sakurai has a YouTube channel now. God, we found a secret thing. Sakurai has a YouTube channel now where he puts up videos talking about making games and various different specific, like deep dives into specific aspects of the games he's made. It's very good. Yeah, I kind of fallen off it, but he's very good. Oh my god, right. I see. Need to wait for him to drop an enemy. I'm gonna die, but it's fine. It's fine, you know? These things happen. Alright, we finally got him. Going off that side seemed like the play. It doesn't seem like he comes all the way up to that corner. Yeah, I did see that. I've not watched his videos. Or video. He's only got one just now, right? I'll be interested in seeing that. I feel like Sakurai is maybe a developer I'm more interested in seeing stuff from, but cameos should be fun at least. So it's poor time to take a drink. Let's fly. Oh, I messed up. I could have got... Let's go back. Let's get help. Oh, I definitely needed that health. Oh, I died there. There's a tomato down there. So is that eyeball thing not the boss then? I guess it wasn't. Just a mini-boss. Which is kind of interesting there's like mini-bosses in this, because obviously in the later Kirby games the mini-bosses serve as a way to, you know, give you copy abilities. Let's Curry blast our way through this. This is a cute wee thing. Yeah, I think the only thing I saw from the cameo videos was that he says that he's not retiring. Like, he's doing this as well as making games. Which I don't think Sakurai has technically retired either. But, I mean, it's... Okay, we're fighting this eyeball again. It's tomatoes with an M because they're maximum tomatoes. They give you full health. I see you're a cloud now. Interesting. But you still do this. Despite it being your downfall last time. Actually, this one's even easier because it doesn't bob around. Why tomatoes? I don't know, because Kirby eats food. Tomatoes are nice and healthy. Oh god. As I said, he doesn't bob around anymore. He's like, excuse me? One more hat. Oh. Don't do that, it's different. Don't do different things. Change scares me. One more boss down. DDD. That sounds like a last boss. This is a cool animation. It's kind of impressive the amount of just like charm and character. Oh, it's a boss rush. Of course it's a boss rush. A video game from this era. There's an actual level as well. That's kind of wild. What? What? Okay. Talk to Ghost Kirby and he let us through the door. But yeah, get used to these bosses because we're going to be seeing a lot of them. This tree in particular is in, I think, every Kirby game. There's some good variations on them though. Not like it's just the exact same boss every time. It's kind of fun that this boss rush has like a bit of platforming before the actual boss rush. Boss rush? Oh god. Oh god. Ah. Should have done that. Sakurai loves deforestation. Yeah. Obviously. Oh, I've only got 2 lives. I wonder what the continue situation is in this game. We should make a save state as a backup just in case I fuck up. I would assume it's forgiving, because again, that's kind of the point of these games. Oh my god. How did I do that twice? I'm gonna make a save state here just in case. Right, let's not fuck up this time. It is definitely a skill issue. This is not a... I can't blame the game for this in any way. That is me being bad. Alright. Boss time? Boss time. I do quite like this boss. I don't know if this is in any of the future Zelda games, in the future Kirby games. I don't remember it. That doesn't mean it's not in there. I don't remember a lot of the Kirby games. I've played, I think, all of them. But I don't remember all of them. Oh, we don't heal. Of course we don't. Boss rush. Oh no, this is gonna be this is gonna be rough. It's Kirby just dancing about. I don't understand this weird... You have to interact with the weird glitchy Kirby. don't know if that's an emulation thing. It can't be an emulation thing. We're playing on this. I think it's just what he's meant to look like. No. Damn it. We have one hit. Oof, that was a close one. One dead. And I'm dead. Oh. Let's go. That mask enemy's annoying. Oh my god. The door. Blast him. One dead. Eat that hit. Could have done that, but you know. Sometimes you got to. Right, one more boss. I'll go. Try save state. I don't think we'll need to use save state, but you never know. Oh, so we can jump on enemies too. That makes sense. That one was easy. Right, let's see if we can defeat this boss in one go. Oh god. Tricked me. You stay in the corner for that one. I died. Let's see what the continues are like. Is there one? Game over. Continue. Oh, that's a cute animation. Oh, we have to do all the bosses again. That's fine, let's start from where we died on. Right, let's not fuck about this time, you know? Let's do it for real this time. Watch that's gonna take 0 hits. That's right, taking it seriously. You think this is a game? Oh god. Alright, well I almost did it with no hits. I did actually download a ROM hack of this game as well, that has color added to it. But I thought we should go through like how it looked originally. Although the version that people have added color to is actually very nice. There's no like health in here, is there? Yeah. Right. This fight again. This fight's probably the one I'm the worst at, I think. Yeah, I was going to do a poll at the start, Jonathan, then I forgot. But that's a good shout, actually. I'll do that for the next one. Oops. Is Kirby pink or white like the cover? Good question. Good question. I think... Isn't Kirby a different color on the Japanese cover? Oh, it says pink on one of them. I might be wrong. But yeah, I was going to do a poll at the start to ask, because obviously we have all these different fillers. But I've stuck with just the grayscale for now. But for Dreamland 2 we'll do that, because Dreamland 2 is on here as well. Oh, I don't know how it's 5 panels. Ah. I think there is also a colour mod for Dreamland 2, which I could get if people would prefer that. But I kinda like having it in the original kind of Game Boy color palettes. Because it does literally turn it into a Game Boy Color game. Oh my god. I'm doing terribly here. Can't talk and play Kirby at the same time. Yeah, I like the classic look, but and we'll get to, you know, a lot of these games will be in color eventually. In fact, the second one will be, because Kirby Stream Land 2 was actually the third Kirby game. Yeah, Gator Ball had a bunch of color palettes and stuff. I love Gator Ball, that game's so good. Right, we're going into this boss fight with 2 damage. Gator Ball is really cool. It's just a fun wee Metroidvania. I was mentioning this before in another stream, I can't remember whose it was. But the team that made Gator Ball also made a Devolver Digital D-Makes collection. Where they made like little 8-bit versions of a bunch of popular Devolver games. And one of them included Gato Roboto, where they made like a kind of Castlevania themed one. Which is also really good. Definitely worth also checking out. Right. We're probably gonna die here because I have 1 bit of health, but let's see. We have 3 lives, so it's fine. This is such a weird bit of level design, this like half bit of a tree sticking out here. Kirby walking. I don't think we have a sprint in this one either, which becomes a very standard bit of Kirby's kit later. Oh, it sounded a bit weird. Kirby walking. Ah! That's it. Kirby walking. But what's everyone's favourite Kirby game? Mine for a long time was Amazing Mirror for the Game Boy Advance. Oh, Forgotten Land surpassed it for me. I really like Kirby and the Forgotten Land. The first attempt at a proper like 3D Kirby game and they just knocked it out of the park. So it's fun that it's going to be the one of the games of this that, since I have chosen arbitrarily to do them in order, it is the one that we will not get to for a long ass time. Alright, let's fight DDD. Oh, it's even in the boxing ring. They really like set a bunch of stuff up in this first game that would just get reused in the whole series, like just became standard, which is cool. One of those things that's cool to see them like nail this much out the gate. Totally Forgotten Land, had a blast with it. Forgotten Land's great. I've not actually played much of Robobot because I wasn't a big 3DS fan. I did play Triple Deluxe though, and Triple Deluxe was also really good. So I do need to. I mean, I say I need to get to Robobot. We will get to Robobot at some point. We will not be playing on a 3DS though because I don't know how to capture stuff on a 3DS. The 3DS has like a really amazing library of games, but I was never a big fan of the hardware. Like I just find it kind of uncomfortable to use. For like long periods of time at least. Oh my god, I'm gonna die. Ah! Okay, I'm gonna die. Nightmare Dreamland also very good. Nightmare Dreamland's another one that technically like probably shouldn't be on the list of mainline Kirby games that I'm going to play through, but I put it on there anyway just because I like Nightmare Dreamland. Nightmare Dreamland is a remake of Kirby's Adventure, and I'm going to play Kirby's Adventure as well, so we will basically see that same game twice. But honestly, they're different enough, I think it makes sense. Oh my god, I'm playing this incredibly safe because I have no health. I think the new 3DS is the nicest thing in hand, personally. It's good. To be fair, I had a 3DS XL, which might be my issue. Like the original 2DS, Jonathan, like the big cheese wedge one. Because yeah, those are very uncomfortable. Ah, we were so close. Oh yeah, those things are rough. I really like the 2DS XL they did though. Like those are really nice. I never owned one, but I wanted to. I have the Zelda 3DS XL, the one that came with Link Between Worlds. Because Link Between Worlds was the thing that made me finally break and buy a 3DS. Oof, that is unfortunate, Jonathan. Do your thing. Oh, I still took damage from that. The good thing is 3DSs are not that expensive, I don't think. Because, you know, it's still close enough to after the point they were out that they've not become collectibles yet. Oh, you did the capture stuff. That's pretty cool. How much have you used that, though? I haven't really looked into the capture stuff for 3DS. No, it's all. I need DDD to actually do the attacks that I can hit him with. I'm gonna die again. Amazing sigh. Oh, sorry, I misread, Jonathan. I thought you said you had done it. You're saying you would like to upgrade to 3DS and do it. Apologies, I misread. But yeah, I didn't even look at the price of them, but yeah. Yeah, sorry. Look, I'm trying to fight a penguin at the same time. Penguins beat me up. No. Oh my god. I'm gonna die again. This boss fight's weird because like he just doesn't do those attacks that much. Like he keeps doing this, which I don't think there's any way for me to heart him off of that. Whereas if he just did this every time, I mean, obviously it wouldn't be much of a fight. Your hammer. God damn it! When you pick up the star, it like slides you forward a little bit. Oh, that was annoying. So that hammer one's really pain because when you pick up the star, like it slides you forward a little bit and you end up taking damage. If you do it from too close, which I keep doing. If I do it from that far, it's fine. Oh, no, I'll do that then. I do wonder if I can like jump on his head during that move or something. I don't want to risk it. Nope. Try and stay somewhat close to him because if he does the hammer one, I don't want to be in the corner for it. I'm gonna die. Boss is kicking my ass. This is not even on the hard mode. I don't know how I took damage there. Way. Oh, I got hit by the hammer in the backswing. Ah. Alright. This continue's gonna take me all the way back. But I did make a save state. So we're cheat. Oh no, it doesn't take us here. Okay, never mind. No save states. We're doing this legit. I think the audio's went slightly out of sync. Oh, let's do the big jump. Couldn't have done that. Dead. So dead. Please just keep doing that. Yes, keep doing that. Just keep doing it, Tini. This is the move I like, because I can actually hit you with it. Oh my god, right. I can get 4 more hits in and not get hit once. I feel like there must be something I can do with that one. Because it seems weird to have a move like that if you can't do it. I think it's... oh, I'm dead. I think it's mostly just to trick you into thinking he's going to do the move where he sucks you in. Right, let's not fuck up this time. Could have done predictions for this boss fight. This is harder than Ganon was. Yeah, because like that run up is the same animation. For that move and the sucking. The sucking. And then obviously this is the same animation too, but he's holding the hammer, so you know. You can tell what he's gonna do. Yes, do the big jump. Don't try to run into me afterwards. That was unfair. How dare you. Oh. He so rarely does that, I keep forgetting that he can do it. I said, this is the one. This time will be the final time. Is there actually something else I want to do after this? I had an idea to do something after he got the Devolver, but like, it's fun. Like, there's not a lot of depth to it, but they're fun, like, versions of those games. The Gator Ball one, I think, is the most fun one. Yeah, it was cheap when it came out as well. I assume it's on sale just now. It's a fun wee thing. Forget what games are in it. Like, there's a version of Ape Out, a version of Gator, a version of Luftrausers, I believe. I can't remember what else though. Oh, I almost did this with no hits. This was almost a perfect. I was so close to perfect on them. We did it. We did it. We knocked that goddamn penguin to space. This must be a dream because I've seen Kirby teabag fools. Kirby always teabags fools. Take a... Oh my god. Kirby's stealing the castle. Four times, you're just in time for me to finish playing Kirby. Yeah, we played through all of Dreamland. Dreamland is really short. It is the shortest of all the Kirby games as far as I'm aware. But we did it. Now, has Jason said when he's on? I think he's usually on around 4:40, right? So we've probably got about an hour still. I could keep streaming for if no one else is on. In which case, we could probably spin the wheel. First, let me open up this. Because there is one other part of this overcomplicated me playing through all the Kirby things that I want to do. No worries, Kashi. Late for you, you should get some sleep. Add a Kirby. I'll add a Kirby. And you know what, as a bonus, Kashi, once you go to sleep, I'm also going to add... little hamster guy. Forget his name. Hold on. He's from Dreamland 2. One of the Kirbys fell over. It's fine. Good night, Kashi. You got the bonus little hamster guy that Kirby rides on. Press up A and select at the title screen to start a new adventure. That's pretty cool. Oh yeah, because this game doesn't have any saves. This doesn't have... You can't save games in this. Like a lot of early Game Boy games, there's no memory in there. So, to start the hard mode, up A and select. That's pretty cool. The DDD should be a poggers remote. It should actually. I might look up that sprite later. Or see if there's a coloured version of it. Because the black and white one might be not as good. I can't do anything here. We're just on this screen. Anyway. Let me quickly... Why am I logged out of this? Damn it. Give me a second. This other part of... you know, this Kirby thing that I have already added multiple layers to, was inspired by I was talking in Mick's stream last night, which is to this. Nope, this is the wrong one. It's not what I meant to add. Good start already. We did this. Oop. Oop. Because we bombed out as well, probably. That's probably fine. As I play through all the Kirby games, I'm gonna rank all of them. Probably just the mainline games. Probably not the bonus games, the side games. We're going to do a ranking of Kirby's. So first up, we're going to add Kirby's Dream Land. Which is now officially the #1 Kirby game. It's the best Kirby game ever made. So far. It's also technically the worst Kirby game ever made. Thank you, Jonathan. I will mess with that later. Yeah, I'll at the end of playing each of these games, we'll rank all the Kirbys. We'll see what ends up #1. And then at the end, once we've done all of them, we'll come back to the list and we'll maybe rearrange things based on how I feel after having finished all of them. But as we go, we'll make a wee list. It'll be a fun thing. And since we have a bit of time, let's go to the wheel. Need some music, actually. I don't have any music. This is all very quiet. I expected the Kirby game to have more music, but it just kind of died. So let's instead boot up a different Kirby game in the background. Put this in. See if the audio starts. There we go. Last call if anyone wants to add anything to the wheel. Nothing added. Dream Course 3 times, I think. I need to add it one more time, I think. Let me double check that. May have missed one. And we've got one more Dream Course. And we have one more air ride from Psy. I think we're just gonna spin it, and then we'll play some of that game, because we have a bit of time. I'll not add the buffet one on just now, I'll add that afterwards, because I don't have it right now. We're gonna play... Oh wait, I didn't shuffle them. Do they count that? I meant to shuffle them. Sorry, Jonathan. It's probably still going to be Dream Course. Like it's going to be Dream Course anyway. Fine, it doesn't matter. Alright, this is going to take a second. I need to switch some HDMI stuff around. I'll be in a second. Stretch, hydrate. We're going to play a little bit of Kirby's Dream Course. Muted the wrong thing. Alright, let's go back to here. I might need to adjust some stuff. I didn't really take into account that... Oh, that's not the right one. That's not the right one. That's the right one. I have too many scenes. Ba, ba, ba. Well, that didn't work. Let's just turn this border off for now and just do this. You know what, actually? Let's just add a new source entirely. Let's just add this. Perfect. We're not playing F-Zero, despite what this wants to make us do. We're gonna play this on my Super Nintendo Classic Mini for the sole reason that I bought it a while ago and never use it, so I wanted an excuse to use it. The only reason we're doing it on this instead of like any other emulation solution I have. We could have played this on the Switch. We could have just used the emulator on the PC. I could have put it onto my Analog Pocket. I was playing Earthbound on it when I released... Yeah, I think the only thing I've really played a ton of on this was Super Mario World, which I could have played on a billion other things. Could have used original Nintendo hardware, that's true. Could have. Right, let me update. Dream Course. I've not played this game in ages. I remember thinking it was alright, but Jonathan seems to think it's terrible, so it must be bad. I love this menu music also. I don't know how loud it is on stream, but it's so good. Plays Nintendo game on the original hardware, don't mind the app running on my PC. Yeah, exactly, we could have got a Barra's copy. Dream Course. Everyone's favourite Kirby game. Yeah, this is the golf one. I don't remember how to play it though, so it's gonna be a disaster. We're not gonna finish this one. Oh my god, Jonathan, that's so good. Thank you for that. How did you make that? I'll show it. Oh, is it? I didn't realize that was on the Death Generator. That's great. For context for people, I'll put this up here, but I'm gonna add this in general. Yeah, I've used that Death Generator thing before, but I didn't realize there was a Kirby thing in it. I should have checked. Thank you for that. Let me put it on screen so people can actually see what we're talking about. Yeah, last time I used it was the Castlevania one for when we were deciding the name of TOS. This is great. I'm gonna use this, but now let's chuck it down in the corner. Oh, it's gonna be too small to read. I'll stick it on like the end screen. But thank you for that. Right, let's figure out how this game works. Name entry, that's the most... Oh my god, this is a cursor. This is my name. Let's see if I can actually try and write Protomia. P... R... Oh, that O is too long. Did I make this go even longer than the last one? I think I did. Oh, there's not going to be space. It's me, Protom. My favorite is making Sonic level screen for erogenous, so yeah, that's a pretty good one. There's a really good one of those as well for specifically for Echo the Dolphin, where it's like fully animated Echo the Dolphin screens. Okay. Oh my god, these controls. So I can press up and down to choose how hard we're hitting, I guess, and then... Oh, this turning's not great. Let's try and hit... You know what? Try and hit multiple at once, right? Look! It's just, you know, it's just gotta get used to the controls. Oh my god. Perfect. I hit one of them at least. Not really sure. Smack it. Oh, and the last one becomes a hole. That makes sense. Does that make sense? I don't know why I said that makes sense. You have to pick up the stars separately? Or does that just mean they're... Let's find out. Let's do this. Because that looks crazy. Oh, that's like a... Okay. That's not what I wanted to do. Well, we're learning the controls here. Fine. Okay, so we don't pick up the stars are just there. Okay. We learned. Yeah, that's just how golf works, is you... Once you defeat all the enemies, you can... get into the... Oh my god. You can get into the hole. Kirby is not happy with how badly I'm playing. We did it! It is very cute though. Okay, so I thought that this pressing up and down here was like a distance thing, but it's like a different type of attack. So we have just the regular straight up one. This seems like a longer straight shot, and then the bounce. Does that arrow do something? Let's find out. Well, fuck that up. I died. More... How did I die? Oh, those tomatoes. Interesting. You have a limited number of... How do you refill them? Because that goes between levels. I think you refill them by hitting multiple in one go. I see. Oh my god. Go in the hole. This game's alright. Definitely not the best golf game I've ever played. Wait, what's this one? Oh, I hit this guy. Oh, it's gonna bounce no matter what. Yep. Yay! I hit him. Can get both these in one go. Oh god, I hit it way too far. So I think this game's... Alright, so these arrows do bounce you around. I think this game's alright, but I think the limited... like the limited movement thing, like this, is rough. I'm gonna use my last these tomatoes to finish this level, and I just won't have any next level. Oh, in fact I missed, so now I'm just dead. Yeah, I'm not into that as a mechanic. Admittedly, it'd be less of an issue if I was like, not terrible at the game, but I am terrible at the game. Good thing is now we can take off the wheel. Although I'm probably going to have to add stuff back onto the wheel, because I think I didn't actually count how many side games there are compared to main games. Oh. Nope. Didn't even name yet. Oh, why did I start going off to the side there? You always let it work through till it's empty and start the... That's true, that would make sense. Oh, this is... I'm very bad at judging these shots still. But yeah, that's probably the way to do it. There are other side games that I've not added to the list though, but like I said before, a lot of them are just side games from existing Kirby games. Oh, I hit it hard on that, right? Oh no, I'm stuck down here. I can also look around. Any of these other buttons do anything? Oh, there's... That's handy. Nailed it. Nailed it, look at that. I do kind of wish we got more weird Kirby spin-offs like this. There's a warp behind us. I'm just gonna blast it down here. There's the hole down there. Oh, we didn't have enough speed there, I guess. Do we have an umbrella now? I don't know how to use powers. I don't know if they just happen on their own. I assume we could use... Oh, if we hit A while Kirby's moving about. That makes sense. So we just need to hit the button again. Oh, go in the hole. God damn it. After how good I did last one, this one's just like, nah. Oh my god. Go in the hole. Alright, we did it. A fun thing that actually showed up in the post today, but that I'm going to have to play the Switch version of when it comes up on the wheel, is if you look at the Kirby cam just now. This. But I'll need to play the Switch version of it rather than the actual cartridge because there's no way for me to capture the analog. Because it's a motion control game. It doesn't come across because of the lighting, but it's a like transparent pink cartridge as well, which is lovely. It's a very nice little thing. And now it doesn't want to refocus on the Kirby's. This time. Oh, there's water in this one. What else we got? Okay, it's a straight line, but there's water. Just blast it. But yeah, that's Kirby Tilt and Tumble. It's the Japanese version of it, which I solely got because the artwork on it's cute. Obviously it's a motion control game, so I can't capture it on the Analog Pocket because I need to move the Analog Pocket to play it. Game over. Damn. Let's try again. We still have time. We're just gonna keep playing this till the stream ends. I assume there's more courses than these as well if I, you know, don't fuck them up. What this? Oh, it was so close to perfect. Take two though. But yeah, it's interesting. I've not played a lot of these spin-offs, so I'm kind of almost more interested in these. I've definitely played a little bit of this before, but not in ages and not much of it. Ah, fucked it. Or did I? Tried this but couldn't get the hang of it. Yeah, understandable. I mean, it's a golf game, but it's not the best playing golf game. It's interesting though. I like I hate this. The precision for actually getting the hole seems like it's too much for what the controls like. It's too hard to judge for me, personally. Right, I want the power up. So let's just do this again. Blast it. I will say the animations are very nice. Like the Kirby as a ball bouncing around is a very cute little animation. It's got like nice momentum to it. Oh. Fucked it. It's not too bad. Yeah, I think this is probably the most I've ever played this game. Oh, I made the same mistakes last time. You can hit that button to get big. Oh. Oh, that was the worst it could have went. Obviously with my pro skills like this, I'm just gonna chip it in. This is gonna go perfectly. Oh my god, I actually did. I'll take that. Huge shot. I don't really need to collect that because I already have that power up, but you know. Oh, this is gonna go badly for me. Oh god. Didn't even make it. We were doing so well. Just go in the hole. Kirby! We dead? I think we're dead. Oh no, we have one more. Hit it too hard. Now we're dead. Yeah, I'm not into this, I think this game's fine. Apart from this weird, like, you die if you do too many shots without getting, like, I don't know how you're meant to replenish. I think you get it from, like, doing double shots. Yeah, the lives thing's weird. I think lives or power would make sense, but having both of them is, like, I don't get it. It doesn't seem fun. Which is kind of annoying, because, like, the main mechanic is fun. Like, it's just a decent playing golf game, you know? With some, like, fun additional power-ups. Oh, it's B I need to press, that's why. That's why I wasn't doing it before. That makes sense. I need to actually learn the controls. In real life, not modern day streaming life, but in ye olde bought this game on a Super Nintendo Life, which is real to me. I guess I would have read the instruction manual and learned the controls. Actually, can you do that in this? I don't want to back out, actually. This does have save states. I don't remember how you get them. Let's try to finish this up before I do it. So I don't accidentally lose my... Yeah, I'm pretty sure that... Oh god, fuck that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the main menu lets you view the manual. Or actually, if I remember right, I think it gives you like a URL to view the manual online. Like, it might not have them built into it. There was definitely something Nintendo had that did that. Yeah. Thank god that hit. I thought I was gonna miss it. Oh, I always overshoot this. I need to... Every time I think that I've got that right, I need to go lower. Painful. Painful. Bad at putting. Oh yeah, that's the menu. Hold B before shooting to change your spin. Oh. We don't need to get fancy with it. I do like, can I show this on stream, actually? The window capture of... I do like this. Just this this overlay of the, I know it's already in the game, it's overlaid over Kirby, but just the fully standing Kirby with his face replaced with this cross. I think that's pretty good. That's some good fucking horror shit. Yeah, the crosshair's aimed at Kirby. They're getting ready to take the shot. Right, where are we going? So warp there. It takes us out there. So easy to get a shot on Kirby. You're not wrong, Kirby is just ahead. So we probably want to go take these guys out first. Oh, do we? What happens if we hit the tree? We've never actually hit the tree. Let's go hit the tree. I'm sure that instruction manual tells us. He gets angry and we bounce off him. That makes sense. That's what I'd expect from hitting a tree with a golf ball. And by golf ball I mean Kirby. Oh, we got rid of the water. That's good. That's less good. What does this A button thing do? Press A at just the right time, you'll get an extra burst of speed. I don't know what the right time is. It just says at the right time. Maybe it's when you're going like down a hill, down a slope or something. It's kind of cool that you can just get these manuals online. There was a big archival effort that I think got finished up last year, maybe this year actually, to archive all of the instruction manuals of every PS2 game. And they're all on archive.org and you can just go and view all of the manuals for like all the PS2 games that you might have played back in the day. That was not right shot. But they were like not easily available before that, but they've like done really like high-res scans of all of them. Kirby's going to space. That's a cute animation. I like the stars like overlapping like that. It's a very stylish little game. It's very cute. I also like that the best score has like another kind of pixel drawn version of a character. Pretty neat. I became 4th. But hey, we still unlock course 2. So fuck it. Right. I guess we would do this and try to hit that one in the air. This one seems like it's gonna be a pain. Although I guess maybe we don't need to hit it in there because we can just hit the others. Okay. See, I undershot what I thought would actually do it, and it worked. I need to not hit things as hard as I think I need to. I think now that I'm getting the hang of the controls, actually, this game is pretty decent. But yeah, I still don't really like the weird health mechanic. Fucking trees in the way. Now what do I do? I chip it over the tree? I still have to go through the tree. Yeah, I think I was meant to use the power-up on it. Yeah, there we go. So I had to use the power-up to get rid of the trees. And I didn't, so I just got stuck behind the trees. See if we can recover from this. Oh god! I thought I'd bounce off that. I did not bounce off that. Alright, well, we learned an important lesson here today. It did say that. Look, now we know. Now we know. Some of those panels are spinning. So I'm gonna say this is gonna knock us a weird way. Yeah. Try not to go too far. Nope, fucked it. Yep, we're all the way back to start. Hey, that's not too bad. Come on. God damn it. I need the opposite of a speed boost. I need a break. I need to be able to just make Kirby stop. Because I keep doing this. I didn't mean to do that this time. Right, here we go. We're gonna chip it in. Chipped it in. Nope. Now I'm stuck on the other side of the barrier. Whoops. Whoops. Oh, it respawned me here. I've really fucked this now. Alright, finally. Finally. We really fucked up that one. I do like that as the day progresses and it gets, you know, dark outside, as it does in Scotland at 4 PM at the end of the year, the light on the Kirbys has become harsher and harsher. To the point where the big Kirby looks kind of ominous now. Right, I think we just don't want to hit this guy. Oh, jeez. Alright. That didn't bounce off the wall like I hoped it would. I should have used it before I hit the wall, or before I turned around. It doesn't bounce off that either. Alright. That power-up is one of the most useful ones, to be honest. Oh, the one time I didn't hit it hard enough. In we go. Probably want to actually continue using the power up now. Why did it show me it would bounce? God damn it. Game lied to me. Oh, I missed that one entirely. I know it was in the water, but the game did the game did show me that it was gonna bounce. So I assumed it was not lying to me, but it was. Can't trust the game. Game over. Time's it. We can do another retry. Let's try and do the bounces right this time. Oh, that was too low. I fucked up even worse than last time. Recovered though. I think I was an alright recovery. Damn it. I don't play golf, so I just assume this is what real world golf is like. Do this properly this time. Okay. I do need to do this though. I need to try and not hit it as hard. Oh, that was too little. The opposite issue. Oh, I did it again. We're gonna have to start again. We're fucked. Let's kill this guy. I just do this. Yeah, I was definitely overcomplicating it. Fine though. We did it. Nail it. It was so close to actually going all the way in. Pro start indeed. It could have been a hole-in-one. I could see how you could get a hole-in-one in that one. Most others, not so sure. Right, let's smash this. Oh, what? Alright. Worked out fine. Did we lose anything for falling off? Doesn't look like it. Let's try and angle it slightly. Yay! Is this going to go in though? I think we're going to overshoot it. Yeah, we overshot it. That's a little bit annoying. We did this though. We can go all the way back up here. Try it again. Which I don't know if that's actually a good choice. Oh, so close. That wasn't too bad. We have 2 tomatoes. I wonder if the wheel will go through the water. Tomatoes, if you will. You're right. You're right, Jonathan. Oh, there we go. You know, the Kirby spin-off that I have been playing in my spare time is the Kirby Pinball Land, the Game Boy. Yes, Jesus, confirmed. I don't know about that. I've been playing Kirby's Pinball Land, which is... I've been playing a lot of pinball games on my Analog Pocket recently, which is weird because I've never been a pinball guy. Like, I'm not a big fan of pinball games. Oh yeah, Kirby, I mean, if Kirby is not a deity, they do at least kill a lot of deities throughout the series. Like, Kirby kills a lot of gods. Or eldritch beings and godlike creatures. Like, Kirby is canonically one of the most powerful beings in any video game series. It's kind of like God of War. Yeah, Kirby is an eldritch being devouring all before it. And also Kirby is a friend. Can we just drive across the... Where does the warp take us at? Oof. Oof. Should I just do this? I instantly do this. Oh, perfect. Well, perfect's maybe being a bit. Please hit the pumpkin. Oh, that was almost like a pro strat. Almost. Right, now to miss this. Yep. I called it. I think I did okay there though. Overall. 2 more holes in this one. But yeah, like I've never been a big pinball person. Like I didn't grow up playing pinball machines or anything. The only thing I really played was Pokemon Pinball. But I picked up Kirby Pinball Land at that retro market thing we went to. Mainly because it was like the only Kirby game I saw. And I've ended up playing a bunch of it. It's pretty decent. Oh, this is too far. It's so close though. Indeed. Let's try just heading in normally. Take into account the slope. It's gonna be death of me. Alright, we didn't do so good in that one. That's fine. I like the music. I wonder how much of the music's actually unique to this and how much is reused from other Kirby games. I did actually look at the sprite sheet for this game, because I looked at the sprite sheets for all the Kirby games when I was like thinking of ideas for this. And the sprite, people have ripped the sprites for this, and they've just ripped, and this is like very good. This is, I'm saying this as a positive. Oh, that lifts you up. Cool. This is a positive way. They've ripped all of the tiles that make up the levels, rather than rip the levels. So you can like assemble together any kind of course like this. I don't know if this game has a course assembly thing. Check actually. Ah, damn it. But yeah, they've got all the sprites, like all the individual tiles for the levels, which is kind of cool. Can't imagine I'd ever use them for anything, but it's kind of cool. We did it! Course 2 finished. I think we probably have time for course 3. Oh, there's Kirby's Dream Buffet on the box art thing. Kaizo Kirby Dream Course. Imagine just like hitting invisible blocks all the time. We were a little bit over the best score. Just a little bit. Alright, what's course 3 gonna be? Not that these levels are particularly themed. That's maybe actually the one thing I would maybe criticize about this game, other than, you know, the controls taking a lot of getting used to. What the fuck? Is that the add and spin thing you're talking about? These went all the way around that. Better not need me to actually learn to do that. What was saying? Got distracted by the craziness. Smack it. Oh, that was so close to being good, and no, I've hit that too far. Hit that too far. We're not off to a good start. If I can't coordinate my left hand, I just now finished the nail post like, oh, I'm the same. I wish I was ambidextrous. This is a confusing level. Are there other enemies here, or is it just these three? Just these three. Oh, I hit this too hard. That's a little bit annoying. I guess you want to attack that level from, if you're playing this properly, you're getting good at it, you probably want to think about which of the power-ups you want to come out of that level with. I desperately wanted the umbrella, I guess. Did it carry over, I think. Just chip us over this. Fuck it. Stop playing your game. We have meticulously planned out routes for me to take. Fucked it. Well, try again. It wasn't the worst plan until I hit it way too hard. See? I do like that as you rotate the thing around. One, it runs like garbage. Like, this rotation just slows the whole game down. But two, Kirby's just like waddling around in a circle. Alright, that was bad. We did terribly there. Huh. I guess we'll hit this. Oh god. They were facing the wrong direction for that. I guess we'll probably go for this one first. Oh, I fucked that. We're spinning at a weird angle now. Right. Let's see how this goes. Can we go in? Yay! We did it. I feel like if I had this game as a kid, I would have played a lot of it and gotten good at it. I don't think I'm going to do that as an adult. But it is fun. Fucked it. That was abysmal. And we're going in the water now as well. This is... Everything went as bad as it could have went. The audio went kind of weird there. My Super Nintendo Mini Classic is not happy with actually being used for once. It's like, I need to sit on a shelf, that's what I do. Right, we're gonna die. Alright, the rock power-up did not help me here. I guess the rock power-up probably does what I was saying that I wish this game had, though, I guess. I could use it as kind of a break. Shit. No! This course, I think this hole is going to be the death of us. I think this is it. Look at where we're going game over. But best way. And we're dead. We're dead. Game over. Well, you know what we need to do? I think the thing that we need is more lists. I think it's only fair if we're ranking the Kirby games. We should also rank the Kirby side games. So, the window capture of this. Here we are. And so we're gonna add to our add to our list of Kirby side games. Kirby Dream. Well done, Kirby's Dream Course. The best Kirby side game. Also the worst Kirby side game. But you know, currently #1 on the Kirby side game leaderboard. #1 ranking game. What a banger. I don't know why I hit continue, I meant to hit game end. I just need to play more. GG for Kirby Golf. It's Kirby Golf. Let's double check the... Let's obviously save this. I don't know if it's saved in game. Manuals. Yeah, okay, so you have to do this to see the manuals. Which is what Jonathan did earlier. Oh, we should see it with the CRT filter on, obviously. For completion's sake. And it wasn't 5 hours worth of... yeah, you kind of have to remember to do it. But isn't there also like a rewind feature? Oh, it does save. That's cool. I actually quite like... I'm not a big fan of CRT filters. But I actually do quite like the one in the Super Nintendo Mini, because it is kind of... I feel like it's a lot more subtle than most CRT filters is. Or are. Like, this looks quite nice. Yeah, I think a lot of CRT filters are like way too heavy on like huge amounts of scan lines and stuff like that, and it's like, I don't know, I guess if your TV was broken it might have looked like this. This one's, yeah, it's quite subtle, it just adds like a little bit blur, a little bit of scan lines. Like, this seems probably closer to what this game would have looked like at the time. Oh my god, the performance. I assume this performance is accurate to what it was like on the actual Super Nintendo. Yeah, exactly, it's just like scan lines through the roof. This is also where we will be playing Kirby Superstar when we get to that. And also I have Kirby Avalanche in here, and also Kirby no Kira Kira Kids, which is Kirby Blockland, I think it's called. Which was a Game Boy game that did come out here on the Game Boy, but the Super Nintendo version never came out here. But it's basically the same game, but it looks prettier. So I thought I'd add it to the list anyway, just because it'd be kind of cool to look at. But yeah, that's gonna do us, I guess, because it looks like Jason is online. Jason is live. We'll be playing Deal or No Deal. The American one, I believe. Or the Wii, I assume? Let's go to the... Where's my ending? We got this one. There's no music here. Let me add some music here. You know, let's just add the entire... Let's just add this and just throw it in the background. Easy way to add music. We'll just chuck this in the background somewhere. And while we're editing things, let's add... Let's add this up here. Yeah, if it works, it works. My beautiful layout. I'll make this look nicer later. I'll try to remember before the next stream to actually lay this out properly. But yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone that, you know, took part in adding Kirby's to the Kirby cam. It's great, I don't know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty solid. Also, I think Final Fantasy VI is playing in the background. The most... It is a banger, it's true. The most dramatic ending music we could have. Thank you, Jonathan, for the raid. Sorry again, Jonathan, for the hate crimes. But yeah, thank you for everyone for showing up, for watching. We finished Oracle of Ages. We dancing fucking mad, yes. You know, let's see if, let's bring this up actually. Because this is a banger. This is one of the best Final Fantasies. But yeah, thank you for showing up and watching. It was a fun time. I don't usually stream on Fridays. At very least not this early. And we played so many games. We finished 2 games today. And I'm not going to finish Dream Course. But who knows, maybe we'll play on stream again at some point later. We shall see. Let's do a quick wee raid. I probably should have done the quick wee raid before I started rounding. Because now we have more time to come. Till the raid's ready. Because I'm a fool. If someone who... Maybe I'll play Final... You know, I'm not a big RPG guy. And I don't know if I would have the attention span to finish an RPG on stream. But man, if I ever do, maybe I'll do Final Fantasy VI at some point. Because man, what a game. What a game. I mean, it's no Final Fantasy IX. But it's pretty close. Anyway, I'm going to send you all over to Jason. Jason will be playing Deal or No Deal, and then doing marbles, as always. See you all over there. Catch much to do so this might... Yeah, we should all just have a... Well, Final Fantasy VI, we should do the Final Fantasy 6 month. I wouldn't finish it in a month is the thing. I don't have the patience or the attention span for it. I would get distracted and I'd be like, alright, we're playing 3 Kirby games now. Like, we should really have been playing... I should have been playing Rodea the Sky Soldier then of this stream. And instead I was like, actually, I really want to do this Kirby thing. I want to start playing Kirby. Anyway, see you all over on Jason's stream. I'll talk to you there.